Hey, hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
Last week we did our best and worst of 2014 show, so this week we jump into the start of Season 3 of the show by playing catch-up with some of the big releases for the last week of the year. The Interview, Into the Woods, and Unbroken, plus Oscar hopefuls Wild and Big Eyes. Our home media moment is Antonio Banderas in the dystopian film Automata. In our triple feature of older films, our new classic is No. Guilty Pleasure Month for Old Classic kicks off in style with Justin's pick Rocket Man, and we see some other Rocket Men in our Oscar A to Z with Apollo 13.
Do it.
We've got a stacked show, so no top 5 this week. We're just going to give you wall-to-wall reviews and discussion. So let's kick it off with easily the most controversial film of 2014. It finally saw the light of day, albeit in a much more limited release than originally planned, and that is, of course, The Interview. For those that don't know the premise yet, entertainment reporter Dave Skylark, played by James Franco, learns that one of his biggest fans is Kim Jong-un, played here by Randall Park, and would like Dave to interview him. Dave's producer, Aaron Rappaport, Seth Rogen, is in the midst of feeling like he needs to do more important work and less fluff pieces, so they agree to this interview. But the FBI gets involved and has bigger ideas for Dave, like him poisoning the dictator and killing him. Now, first things first, the film is now so infamous, there's no way that it could possibly live up to all the hype. So, separating that completely, we're just sort of going to look at it as it is. It is funny in parts, though it definitely drags for a good 20 minutes or so in the middle. But if you're looking for it to have a sharp, biting political commentary, you're probably missing the point. There's a little bit of that here, but this is a ridiculous and juvenile comedy like most Rogen offerings with his writing partner, Evan Goldberg. I kind of liken it to Neighbors. It's got a similar feel to that, similar result.
Definitely.
Obviously, these guys wrote both of these movies. I think we all were okay with the laughs in Neighbors, but felt that it could have used a little bit more. I felt the exact same here with The Interview. So I leave it with a B-. Joe?
Well, I agree with you. There's no way that it could possibly live up to all the hype that it's created.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, I guess, a little disappointing in that sense, but it's kind of been ruined for me because I was looking forward to it for a while. So I guess that is naturally to be expected. Overall, this film is basically what you could expect from these writers. Rogen and Franco were energetic, and the situation is pure ridiculousness. But it's fun to watch, with the laughs being mostly mixed, as you said. There was some really funny stuff, while there were other things that were just really predictable. Mostly what I watched, though, was enjoyable, kind of in line with the rest. I mean, it's not what I really want to see from them. I don't think it's the best that we can offer, but it's pretty much in that same vein. I'm going to leave it with a B.
Okay. Justin, how about for you?
To be honest, in the face of all the controversy for me, I was kind of indifferent about it either way. It looked funny, but it wasn't like anything that screamed, I need to see this immediately. However, after all the controversy, I think that there's a relatively funny comedy in The Interview. Rogen and Franco play off each other very easily, and while the film, I agree with you, Dan, does hit a bit of a slog, I'd say about 20-30 minutes in, it does eventually pay off in a lot of really funny gags later on. I do think, though, in the same vein as Superbad, and this is the end, it does go a little bit overboard at times. I think the really, really, really gory climax is going to be love it or hate it. But overall, I think it's worth a few laughs. It's definitely worth a viewing if that's your thing. I give it a B.
These guys have great chemistry with each other. I think that's been proven, time and time again, all the way back to Freaks and Geeks.
Absolutely.
So that certainly I didn't have an issue with, and I really like the Lizzie Kaplan character. She plays the female FBI agent. But yeah, that downtime really, really was a little bit of a slog to get through, I thought. Obviously, Justin, it does pick back up because the downtime's right in the middle of the movie. Mm-hmm. The last few scenes are really great. But yeah, I wish either they went a little more with the political commentary stuff or just padded it with a little more laughs. Like, I feel like that's the area where it seemed the least funny, when they were really trying to be a little more biting with the satire rather than just being funny.
Mm.
Honestly, I would have shot for more laughs, honestly, because that's the thing. I know Will Ferrell tries to do that sometimes with the other guys in other movies along those lines, but I feel like with Rogen and Goldberg, they are just so much more effective when they just go straight up comedy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that was, I mean, Joe, you gave Neighbors the lowest grade of all of us. I think that was sort of your problem with Neighbors, is that they tried to hit like these drama points that you weren't really feeling.
No, I thought that was the weakest part of the movie. I know what they're trying to do, but in all their movies, I feel like that's the weakest part, is when they try to have that serious story. I like that they're trying to be smart and satirical and funny. I mean, you have the religious angle with This Is the End, and with Neighbors, you kind of have the whole college life, Neighbors, typical complaints, and with this, you have all the political stuff. It's like those are the hooks for the movie, and there's definitely potential for really, really smart comedy, but that's not really what these guys do.
Right.
They just have a lot of fun. And I agree, if they stick with the fun and keep that consistent tone, that's good. You're right, it does kind of drag a little bit when they try to be a little smarter.
Right.
So if they're going to do it, that's fine, but spend more time with it. If not, just stick with what they're good at.
Yeah. Well, and this is just such an interesting case of a movie, because obviously from all the hype surrounding it, the general audience reaction has not been very positive. And I feel like that's because a lot of these people watching it are doing so for political purposes, and we're never going to see this movie anyway.
It's true. I agree.
You know, so it's like it's getting bashed online. Oh, this is the worst movie, you know, I've ever seen. Of course it is. You didn't go. You were never going to watch this movie, you know, until all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's sort of getting a little bit of a bum rap for that. Because really, it's, you know, it's not the greatest thing. Certainly, I like This Is the End better from these guys, but it's far from the worst.
Yeah, for lowbrow comedy, it definitely works.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. It is lowbrow. And they never set out to do anything differently than that.
Yeah.
You know, like they certainly never set out to start some kind of free speech revolution, you know, whatever. But, I mean, the fact that President Obama's commenting on your movie is going to give it a higher profile.
Yes.
And I think all these people downloaded it, you know, thinking, okay, well,
This is the next big thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. If it's causing so much controversy, it must
actually
epic, and it's like, it's
important.
just dumb.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
That's fine, but
It's what they do.
You're right. Half the people that watched it probably weren't expecting that.
Right,
You know,
right.
So it's a good point.
Well, let's shift gears into a more dramatic political movie, and that is Unbroken. And Joe's going to tell us about that.
Unbroken is an American war drama produced and directed by Angelina Jolie and based on the 2010 nonfiction book by Laura Hillenbrand, Unbroken, a World War II story of survival, resilience, and redemption. The film revolves around the life of the USA Olympian and athlete Louis Zamperini, portrayed by Jackie O'Connell. Now, Zamperini survived in Iraq for 47 days after a bomber was downed in World War II and was sent to a series of prisoner of war camps in Japan. In terms of films about war and prisoners of war, there is a massive precedent. Jolie has actual events rather than complete fictionalization to go off on, which is enhanced by some very good performances, primarily from O'Connell. The shots are beautiful, taking full advantage of the landscape. It also has an incredibly epic scope. This may disrupt the sincerity of the film for some, reminding them that they are actually watching a film. Not for me, though, for it is a grand story, and the impact hit most of the right notes emotionally. The only major issue I found was that the tale doesn't really pick up until Zamperini arrives at the camps. There are a series of flashbacks breaking up the more recent events in the film, paralleling the decisions Zamperini makes and how his past influenced him. However, this is dropped very early and completely disappears. It disrupted the flow a bit. This may not be the grittiest war drama, but it does have the impact that is needed, and I give it an A.
Justin, let's hear from you about Unbroken.
Well, similar to George Clooney's The Monuments Men from earlier in 2014, director Angelina Jolie takes a great concept and essentially bites off more than she can chew. Now, I gotta give it credit for the fact that it never really drags, and it really does have a compelling story. I mean, the source material is great, but the movie just... There's so much going on in the book, I don't feel like you could possibly get it all on screen. And Jolie's trying, but she wants so much to get to the prison that we lose out on most of the other expositionary stuff that's kind of interesting. I admit it's not the most engaging as the prison, but I feel like it does have its place. And like you said, Joe, it completely disappears after less than an hour into the movie. Admittedly, in between all that are some really impressive performances. O'Connell does a great job. I thought Ishihara, or Miyabi as he's credited as in the film, did a really good job as the bird. Mm-hmm. But overall, it just feels like it's a decent movie when it could have been a great movie. I give it a B-.
Well, before I go, I will point out Joe gave this movie an A, as you guys just heard. We are going to revisit our top 20s for 2014 come Oscar season, because pretty much the first few weeks of 2015 are going to be playing catch up with some of these more Oscar type releases that did not get a wide release. Still to come, movies like Foxcatcher, The Imitation Game, etc. So maybe we'll hear about Unbroken again come February on Joe's list. But for me, I'm sort of in between you guys, leaning a little more towards Justin, though. It's definitely more positive than negative here, but I can understand why it's being a little bit critically mixed. It's not that the movie is too long, it's that too much time is spent on each chapter, causing repetition. For me, the most emotional part was the epilogue, and that tells me that maybe we could have seen a little bit more of his life after the war, even if only for 5 minutes, rather than just a flash on the screen of what happened. I mean, there's no doubt that this man is great, but what about the forgiveness portion of his story, which is touched on again in the epilogue? That's where the real emotional connection came in for me. I do think Jolie is a natural behind the camera, though. She really captured what was important about each part of Zamperini's tale. I just wish there was a little bit more focus on all aspects of the story rather than just a lot of the concentration camp and then some of the floating at sea on the raft and then little snippets of the Flyboy type stuff. So for me, it's a B. So Joe, this one really hit you, emotionally in all the right spots, I guess, huh?
I thought so. I thought they actually did focus on a lot of good points. There definitely was a lot of information, so I could see that there wasn't perhaps enough time spent on everything. But I felt that once it really did get to the prison camp area, I thought it was just perfect, honestly. I thought a lot of those scenes were well shot, really well executed, and the performances were fantastic.
Yeah, I think the performances is definitely one of the stronger parts of the film, especially for, such really no-name actors. I mean, his buddy on the raft we've seen before in About Time and a couple other movies. I didn't recognize him really from anything, nor the bird.
No, this is, according to IMDb, I believe this is his second credit, so...
Well, he gave a great performance.
Relatively unknown. So.
As well. What about the flashback stuff to his childhood, the track star, the Olympics type stuff? More of that or less of that would you like to see?
I honestly don't know. Because I feel like that is the problem maybe for a lot of people, is it's trying to cover so much. I mean, this guy was, this son of an immigrant. He's an Olympic athlete. He's this fighter. He had this time at the camps, and he has to forgive them afterwards. I mean, that would be like a 4-hour movie. So,
right.
I mean, in all honesty, I liked those flashbacks a lot. I could have used maybe a little more of them because I felt like they're just completely absent afterwards. Or maybe drop them all together and just go by dialogue, perhaps. I mean, you could go either way, but in all honesty, I just don't understand why it was such a seamless integration, and then it just completely left. I thought that disrupted it. If it hadn't been for that, it probably would have been perfect for me.
Yeah, I definitely would have liked to see more of that intermixed. Justin, how about for you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of anti-Moneyball to me, because I remember Moneyball cross-cutting all the time, and that really bothered me. But here, they were kind of consistent for it for a little while, and then we never saw it again. I'm definitely with you, though. I feel like there should have been more, because there was a lot more to be said. There was a lot more things to go off of. Am I entirely sure they should have started immediately with him already in the bomber and we sort of just tell it via flashback? I'm not sure. I feel like they did have their place, but then it sort of broke its own rules, which bothered me a little bit. I also don't like some of the ways that she transitioned between them. I can't exactly agree with you, Dan. I really think that Jolie has promise, but I don't think she's quite there yet.
Okay.
I mean, maybe some of the editing decisions, obviously, there's some issues.
There are a couple clumsy spots. She has a couple really good moments in the movie.
I just think in terms of direction in regards to setting up the scene and directing the actors, I mean, obviously, she's doing something right because she got some great performances out of them.
Oh, no, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, I feel like some of the stuff works really well, other things don't. Like, I think there's one scene where they're cutting back from the past to a bunker, and there's this really cheesy fade, and it just doesn't work whatsoever. It looks like a really bad dream sequence.
I don't know. I thought most of the fades worked pretty well because I saw she was doing some basic parallel stuff. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking. It was simple, but it worked, I thought.
And what I liked about it also is that she really... I felt wasn't trying to hit us over the head with the emotional aspect of it. It's
Yeah.
there, and we know what we're supposed to feel about it. But, I feel like in a lot of movies, especially maybe in war type movies, we really get beat over the head with, okay, this is really hard for this person. And we're like, yeah, we know, we're watching it. It
Yeah.
doesn't, maybe not to the degree of Steve McQueen in 12 Years a Slave.
No.
He's obviously in a higher echelon, but, I think for a newcomer director,
Relatively.
relatively, I mean, this is only her second feature, I really think she hit a lot of the things she needed to hit without going overboard with them, I guess.
And maybe it was too ambitious for a second project, but I think all things considered, she did a pretty good job.
Fair.
Justin doesn't think so.
I know you don't, but I mean, it really didn't bother me. I was actually going to this one with lower expectations, though, because I knew it was getting such mixed reviews.
Right.
And that surprised me, but...
I believe it's in the 40s on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, it was like in the 50s
And I think
last
that's
time I checked.
a little harsh.
I was surprised, honestly.
I would actually agree with that. I definitely don't think 40%.
Yeah, it's a little low.
Well, maybe it's because the book, perhaps, got such great
Maybe.
reputation, but I don't know. I thought that it was kind of an old school style, kind of this epic grand scale of older Hollywood, not necessarily, like I said in my review, being grittier like a lot of war movies are, like something like Fury,
Right.
but still evoking the emotions it needed to. And I guess for me, that's what was most important. In regards to some of the pacing, I don't know. I didn't think the flashbacks, one way or the other, bothered me too much. I think they set it up. Could we have used more of his life? Maybe. But I think we got the message.
I guess my biggest issue is not necessarily that it fits with the main context, but more or less that it is a really grand scale story. So I feel like if it's already there, why not find a way to make it, to integrate it into the story instead of just leave like a couple snippets. That was one of my biggest issues with the way Jolie directed. A lot of the stuff just felt like a montage, even with the prison brutality. She's trying to gun for that, and that's why it's the biggest moment in the movie that she devotes the most time to, and yet she really, really tones it down. I feel like if you're going to at least talk about this man's life, get it in there more. Don't just focus on one main event and let that be the crux of the entire movie.
That was sort of my main issue with it as well. Like, I wanted to see a more complete vision of him as a person, not just as a POW. And I don't think we got that enough. Well, we're going to move on now to Into the Woods, and Justin's going to tell us about that. This was on your top 5 most anticipated for 2014, so let's see how it's stacked up.
Long time coming, I guess.
Yeah.
Desperately wanting a child, a baker and his wife, played by James Corden and Emily Blunt, set off into the woods to gather various items to break a curse set upon their family by a witch, played by Meryl Streep, once again proving that the woman can basically do anything. Along the way, the two cross paths with various fairy tale characters, such as Cinderella and Prince Charming, played by Anna Kendrick and Chris Pine, Little Red Riding Hood, played by Lila Crawford, and Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, played by Daniel Huddleston, all equally wishing for something and willing to risk it all, regardless of the consequences. Now, given rumors and alterations later on in 2014 that director Rob Marshall had taken some liberties with this, possibly toning it down for a more family-friendly rating, I was kind of curious to see what the original show looked like. So I took to Amazon and watched a stage production from the 90s and thoroughly enjoyed it. After then seeing the new version, admittedly there are some liberties taken, most of which I thought were justifiable. And even though it lacks the same charm that I got from the original production, I thought it was remarkably faithful and really entertaining. And that's largely thanks to the entire ensemble. Emily Blunt gives a great performance, as does James Corden, and everyone seems like they're having a really good time in this really gorgeous world. I thought the action flowed well, the music worked really well. I do think at times it got a little too stagey, and I feel like the first half and the second half of the movie sometimes feel like two entirely different movies. But overall, this was definitely one of the better movies to come out in the holiday season, and I give it a B+.
Yeah, I saw the show originally in the 90s, not on Broadway or anything, but in my theater class, we watched a video of it with Bernadette Peters in the Meryl Streep role, and it really is pretty faithful to that original show. The singing here and just the songs in general really is what drives this movie much more than pretty much all of the recent musicals we've seen, including Annie and Jersey Boys and etc. I do wish that the closing song was better. I never really understood why they ended on that song because it's a little bit like somber. I get the point of it, but it's just like you want to end on a big a big number, and they just kind of don't.
I guess my biggest issue with the last song number is they're trying to hit home the moral, and I'm not entirely sure if I agree with them that it's the moral.
Okay, that may be part of it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Even just a reprise of the beginning song or something.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see a little bit more. It may be frustrating for some moviegoers that it is in two parts. I mean, basically, the stage show is, the intermission separates the two completely separate stories.
Yeah.
Just happening to involve the same cast.
That explains a few things.
yes.
but yeah, I mean, that's why the movie's set up like that. And that may bother some more than others. For me, I was okay with it. I don't know if having seen the show helps me in that regard or not. But I do agree with you, Justin. I really felt like I was sort of watching the show itself with how it's shot. For me, it actually worked. I thought it was kind of cool to have it staged the way it would be on the stage, rather than a movie version of a stage musical. Which, sometimes it works. I thought it worked great in Hairspray, for example.
Yeah.
Other times it obviously doesn't, and I could, list a number of examples there. But I really thought the cast here all worked well together. We've seen some of these people sing before. We saw Anna Kendrick in Pitch Perfect, and Meryl Streep in Mamma Mia, James Corden in One Chance. But Emily Blunt here really does just about steal the show. And I can't recall her ever singing before.
No, not at all.
And Daniel Huddleston is also very good. He has one of my favorite songs in the show. We saw him in Les Mis a couple of years ago. But overall, I really did enjoy this. I give it an A-.
Oh, okay.
Joe, how about for you?
Well, Into the Woods, it's kind of funny. I knew absolutely nothing about this going into it. Apparently it was a big musical that everybody loved. And
a lot of people don't know
and
that,
I've never heard of it before, so I was like,
Musical theater people know it. The general population, not so much.
I figured, which is fine. And I pretty much echo you guys. I think that the best thing about it for me was to actually see a musical that actually had really good singing for once. Which I think is a core. I really liked the music for the most part in this. I thought everybody sang well. I also really liked the sets. I loved the costumes. I thought that was great. I liked really all the cast. Everybody seemed like they were having a good time. They all did well. I think Chris Pine was actually hilarious in his role.
Wasn't crazy about his singing, though, to be honest with you.
I thought he was
I wasn't
fine.
either, but that's okay.
He still had some pretty awesome scenes. I think that speaks to the actor.
And his one song really is one of the standouts of the show.
In a way.
Well, can resist agony.
Yeah.
Terrible agony. It was pretty hilarious. But actually, the only character, and maybe this is intentional, that annoyed me was Red Riding Hood.
Red Riding Hood, yeah.
God, I could not
That is her part.
stand her.
I think they chose somebody specifically with an irritating voice.
God, I hated that. I have to be honest. I guess if that was the intention, great. But I can't say I enjoyed certain aspects of that. But overall, though, good performances. I have to admit, though, I'm glad he explained it to me, because I felt like, okay, I was a little confused narratively, because I felt like, okay, there's this interesting plot, sort of understand what they're going for thematically, but I feel like a lack of tension, not really sure what we're supposed to resolve. Okay, plot's resolved. Entering a completely different plot that's totally different, and I'm like, all right, this movie could have ended a while ago, and now we're going this route. And a couple characters disappear, and the ending, I was not entirely sure of what they were going for morally. I thought I got it, but I wasn't entirely sure I agree with it as well. Plus, kind of a downer. Didn't like the last song.
Yeah, I wish it was better.
So I think that kind of hurt it for me. Oh, until that point, I really did enjoy it, but I think it was a little clunky in some points. I got a little lost with what happened to Streep towards the end. I had to get it explained to me. Something happened in the play, and then there was Rapunzel, her storyline getting resolved, and she disappeared, and just a couple little things like that bothered me. Overall, though, great sets and designs, awesome music, everybody having a good time. I'd leave it with a B+.
Okay. Yeah, that last song, honestly, is what dropped it from an A for me. I was really all on board, and then that last song and then the credits, I was just like, I'm not thrilled, you know?
Yeah.
Like you think of your favorite musicals of all time, and they all end with this big powerhouse number, and this just wasn't that. Which is still faithful to the show, but maybe not the best way to go for the movie version.
Probably not. It would probably hurt the overall narrative if you do it that way.
Right.
It's typically not something you do. I mean, unless it's a very somber play, but
I guess that's true.
I didn't think it was for the most part. I thought it was pretty fun.
Even though it gets significantly darker around the second half,
Yeah.
it's still pretty upbeat.
Yeah.
Even with the sort of somber ending.
Joe, I would love for you to just sometime check out the musical and see how it compares.
You know, a girlfriend loves it. So,
yeah.
So
she was mentioning that when we watched
she
it.
actually, I guess, saw maybe a similar one. She watched the stage play from the 90s.
That's
too.
probably the
Okay,
same
it
one.
probably
Yeah.
is,
I think
yeah.
it's- yeah, so,
it's probably the one I saw in theater class 20 years ago.
Maybe the famous one. But I guess I'll have to watch it because I am interested to see if it's improved. I'm guessing it was better. You guys agree on stage? From what you
I
saw,
think
that
so.
version you saw? No, yes, no, maybe?
It's hard for me to say. It's been 20 years.
Oh.
I will say that I think Bernadette Peters probably does a slightly better job than Meryl Streep, which is no easy feat. But I mean, Bernadette Peters, I don't know if you're familiar, but is one of the most classic, stage actresses of all time.
Well, I guess they...
With a powerhouse singing voice. Meryl Streep, great with the acting. Her singing is serviceable.
Yeah.
But she's not, she doesn't have a big bombastic voice.
I felt like she was more like a name, but I did
Right.
like her character though. Though I was a bit confused by her as well. Just like
By her motivation, or
just I feel like she kind of turned on the dime towards the end, and
Okay.
it threw me off. So I think if I watched the play, I'd get a better understanding of some
that's
things.
possible.
Which
A couple
Yeah.
more things are fleshed out, so that might help.
yeah.
What's impressive though is that this really is like an all-star cast, and we see a lot of movies with where there's a dozen big names in it, and it just never seems to work. So
That's
the
true.
fact that nobody was like hamming it up too much, or wanting more screen time. Like Tracy Ullman, who I love, great comedian and improv actress, is only in maybe 3 scenes as Jack's mother. But she keeps her performance where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Christine Baranski as well, veteran stage actress. She's on The Good Wife now. And, she plays Cinderella's mother, or stepmother, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
She's only in maybe 3 scenes, too. But it's not like, hey, look at me,
I'm here.
I'm Christine Baranski. You've seen me, like...
Lucy Punch too.
Lucy Punch
Yep.
as well is as one of the evil stepsisters. Everybody kind of in that vein really stuck to what their character needed and didn't go too overboard with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a positive, Justin, from your
Most anticipated.
your
goodness.
anticipated list. One of the few
Something,
we've had,
Yeah.
apparently. Okay, well, up next is Wild. And in this, Reese Witherspoon plays Cheryl Strayed, a real woman who hiked over 1,000 miles up the West Coast on the Pacific Crest Trail to cope with years of hard partying, the end of her marriage, and the death of her mother, played in flashbacks by Laura Dern. It's directed by Dallas Buyers Club's Jean-Marc Vallée, with a screenplay from one of my favorites, Nick Hornby. One of my absolute favorite things to see in an actress's career is the segue from romantic leading lady to more mature, dramatic roles. Hopefully you guys agree with me on this. Julia Roberts and Erin Brockovich earned Oscar Gold when she did it. So did Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side. Wild may well earn Witherspoon her second Best Actress trophy. She's always been one of my favorites, but I've also always acknowledged that she might not really be the greatest actress out there, but I like her, But after Walk the Line proved that she had the chops for dramatic roles, Wild now proves she can carry a heavy drama practically by herself. This is an incredible story of motivation, choices, regret, and a dozen other things, and it's directed incredibly well by Mark Vallée, who never fails to make us feel Cheryl's pain, really get us inside of her head. I really only have 2 problems with this movie. One is minimal, the other one is a little bit bigger. The minimal one is that though Cheryl has, dry skin or chapped lips in some of the desert scenes, she never even looks like she remotely has a sunburn, a tan, disheveled. It's always just Reese. That bothered me a little bit, but the bigger problem is with the flashbacks. They are necessary to the story, but there's too many of them. And sometimes they go in chronological order, sometimes they don't. Some parts of Cheryl's life we spend a lot with, some hardly any that I would have liked to see more from. But anyway, slice it. I do think this will be a serious contender at award season. I leave it with an A- for now. I'm going to go see it again this week, actually, so that may improve to an A, if I can sort of get past those couple of things. Justin, let's hear from you on Wild.
Well, after Dallas Buyers Club and now Wild, Jean-Marc Vallée knows how to get a good performance out of his actors. We saw it with Dallas Buyers Club with Matthew McConaughey, and now it's definitely got to be Reese Witherspoon.
And Jared Leto, too.
And Jared Leto, lest we
that
forget.
movie, yeah.
Don't forget.
Witherspoon turns out easily one of her best performances.
Oh, yeah.
playing a woman dealing with her personal demons without ever becoming whiny, which I think could have gone wrong in the hands of so many other directors. Though, much like you said, Dan, I think Wild pulls a get on up in terms of telling the story out of chronological order. I'm with it for about the first hour. In the latter half, it just goes all over the place, often trying to insert this weird psychological component to it that is not necessary at all. Mm-hmm. And I think there's like 3 or 4 tacked on scenes at the end that have no business being there whatsoever. But overall, I thought this was a really good movie with some great performances. I give it a B+.
Okay. Joe, how about for you?
Wild, I'd say welcome to Hiking, the movie. Really, though, Witherspoon does showcase her talent with a very realistic portrayal of this conflicted woman. We really feel her journey, seeing the physical and mental trials, except for some questionable makeup. I mean, there's some bruises. But I think other than the bruises, and like this one scene at the beginning I'm sure you liked with the toe.
I loved it. I had to turn away the first 5 seconds of the movie.
Yeah, I was thinking when I was watching, wow, Dan's going to really enjoy the beginning of this one.
Yeah.
But really, with the exception of that, I didn't feel like it was too intense. They could have probably beat her up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. At least gotten her dirtier. I mean, I remember she was in the shower, and it's supposed to like demonstrate how dirty she's gotten. There's like a little bit, but I'm like, okay, you've been on the hiking trail here for weeks, and you only have this little patch of dirt. Like,
yeah, no,
you'd be a lot dirtier than that, honestly. But the landscape shots are great, and the supporting cast are made up of these decent, I guess, mostly low-profile actors. Maybe they're completely amateur, but that makes it more realistic. I thought it was really a good way to enhance it, with many memorable characters and situations. But I do feel the film did try a bit hard sometimes, and maybe this was because of the constant flashbacks and some really obvious soundtrack choices. She's gotta be an independent one. I'm like,
yeah, I didn't love the soundtrack.
Getting a point off for that, like we didn't need that. Still, it's a powerful performance. Maybe if they fleshed out some of the flashbacks and spread them out more, and they just let the journey kind of speak for itself. I didn't think we needed some of the little extra quotes and little monologues. Like I think a few less, would have been fine. Just kind of utilize them when you have them. But really, her performance was great, and it was a very simple, grounded story that I think is one thing that made it work so well. Being something that we can really speak to and relate to her character, I leave it with an A- as well.
Okay.
If it hadn't been for some of those touchy moments, I think it was trying a little too hard to be manipulative, and I just that really bugged me because it was so obvious. I think everything else about the movie was very naturalistic, so to speak, very earthy. I mean, sorry, but really,
that's fine. It fits.
It works, and I just felt like we didn't need some of those really obvious things.
I actually liked the monologuing a lot and the poetry that she left at each stop. I liked those touches, but I do agree with the soundtrack bit. I think they were trying to sort of cram something in there that didn't need to be there. I mean, Reese, this Cheryl Strayed woman, she didn't even have Walkman or it was just her and nature, and I would have liked a little less soundtrack stuff and a little more naturalistic sound.
Let the ambient noise do the talking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. I think that they wanted to kind of speak to the time it's taking place, and obviously her enjoyment, I guess, on the music scene, because it's right around the time of Jerry Garcia's death.
Right.
There was the big Grateful Dead thing. A little before that, there was Kurt Cobain. And trying to show that, okay, she was like this rebellious, punky, grunge kid or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's fine, but there's a little too much of that. I think when you're trying to do this really basic story where this one's trying to get away from that to experience nature, I think that needs to be the focus, which it mostly is. But I think those flashbacks do take away from it.
Right, I feel like if you want to do that, you do it in the flashbacks, which I think all of us agree there were too many of.
But then she comes out of it, and it kind of reintroduces itself sometimes a little too much.
Right, and I didn't like that either.
And it makes you feel like you're in a different movie a couple scenes. So, I don't know.
What's interesting about the whole makeup thing, though, is in Dallas Buyers Club, we saw, both Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto, kind of waste away, and, their faces were showing what was happening to them.
Well, to be
But
fair,
here it's just sort of minimized.
Right.
Well, that was probably partially makeup, but also the actors probably going the extra mile. And I mean, to be fair, I thought that Reese looked like she did get in shape, but maybe she could have tried a little harder. I don't know. But she still looked like, I don't know, like some scenes she looked like she was a little bit skinnier than maybe she would have been. Okay. Like you noticed her muscles and her legs were built up, but everywhere else...
Yeah, they did show some leg stuff.
So, I don't know. It was it was something they could have enhanced a little bit there. But, it wasn't the most convincing to see she was on the trail for, a month and a half? Or
And that's the worst that's happened to you?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know.
We saw that a little better in Unbroken when they were on the raft for... a month and a half.
Yeah, they got
their faces were pretty ravaged by the sun. I felt like hers might have been also.
Little pasty on the lips there. Man.
Yeah. How'd you guys feel about the conclusion of the film? Sort of the monologue at the end of the trail.
I thought it was trying a little too hard.
Okay, you thought that was part of the trying too hard.
That was like the worst offender. Like I think you needed a quieter moment. Like one line, I'm here, my journey. Let's see what the future holds. But she just kept going and going. Oh, it was so wild. Spoilers. I'm like, oh god, why are you being so cheesy?
Well, she adds an epilogue that doesn't need to be there. That's problem number one.
To use the term, I feel like it's Oscar baiting a little bit, and I hate that.
Yeah,
just playing by those cliches. It was fine, but there's too much of it. Like she gets to that bridge, and then she just kind of expands on, like you said, Justin, that telling us basically a little bit more about her life story that I think we didn't really need to know.
No, it's like, if we want to know, we'll look it up.
We'll read
really don't need to tell us.
We'll read the memoir.
Yeah.
We'll expand it. Like, we know there's a future ahead of you. It kind of takes away from the whole mystery vibe she's going for about life itself, essentially, and that kind of impacted the whole theme of the film a little negatively, I think.
Okay.
So its impact was a bit soft in there.
Laura Dern, Mom of the Year. We've seen her now a couple times this year.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Between Fault in Our Stars and this.
Now, Dern's always a welcome addition. I guess she's having a minor comeback.
Yeah.
She plays probably the happiest, nicest mom ever.
Mm-hmm. I'd say so.
I was thinking, like, everybody in...
Every time, too.
Yeah, just about. But everybody in Reese Witherspoon's life was like a saint. I mean, her mom, her boyfriend.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow.
The farmer that picked her up.
The farmer. Just like a lot of really nice people, and one or two possibly bad ones.
Yeah.
But no, there are a lot of great people. I liked Dern's character. Once again,
why so much with the flashbacks?
It's like we had a whole segment, and then I'm like, okay, are we going to expand on this? No, we're not.
And most of it they don't. Yeah.
And then there's like that one critical scene where you're supposed to feel really bad. They have like the scene with their brother trying to tackle that because obviously he has a relationship. But we don't really see too much of that.
Yeah, I think that part really missed the mark.
So just like, okay, I see what you're going for, but...
He's here and then he's gone.
It's another common, I guess, mistake with the use of flashbacks. Too much, too little. Pick the flashback you want to expand upon. Like, okay, let's expand on the brother relationship and take out like 2 or 3 of these random sex, drug... We get it. We get it,
Powerhouse performance, though, no question.
Oh, yeah, that's the best thing about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, up next we've got Big Eyes, and Justin's going to tell us about that.
Margaret, played by Amy Adams, has been trying to make a living selling her paintings with a focus on disproportionate eyes when she draws the attention of fellow artist Walter Keane, played by Christoph Waltz. Though after they fail selling her paintings as is, the two find success in postcards and posters under Keane's name until Margaret decides it's time to reclaim what's rightfully hers. It's official, listeners. Tim Burton's officially lost it. When he made Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I could, for the most part, still stand behind him even though he destroyed one of my childhood favorites. When he made Alice in Wonderland, I could at least defend the fact that it was his unique vision. When he made Dark Shadows, at least we had Eva Green. In Big Eyes, you're on your own, Burton. He takes a great subject with a really compelling story and just gives us this really clumsy, really unfocused, lackadaisical script with almost no direction whatsoever. Honestly, about a decade ago, or even maybe just a couple movies after he made Ed Wood, which I think this was trying to emulate but failing miserably, this would have been awesome, but instead it's just not well thrown together. Adams and Waltz do their best with the material. They elevate it slightly, but not much. I give it a D+.
Holy.
Wow. All right, Joe, let's hear from you next on this one.
Really enjoyed this one. Tim Burton mostly reins himself in, though the tale does become more fantastical as it goes on. Still, I found the story fascinating and the characters interesting. Still, I feel like we only ever scratched the surface of who these people really are. Also, I found the truth around how the events played out to be somewhat contrived somehow as the events continue. Really, what elevates it, though, are the performances from Adams and Waltz. I think they are both really great here. I think they have great chemistry. I just wish there was a little bit more to go on, expanding these characters, and I give it a B+.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm with you. This is, for me, one of Burton's best in the last 15 years. I mean...
I thought it was great.
I thought Dark Shadows was just very not good. I like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake. I know I'm kind of alone in that, but I thought Alice in Wonderland was like fun, but this is a really good movie. It's got a compelling story. The leads are fantastic. Amy Adams' knack for accents, to slip into these different roles, becoming this complete other person, it's uncanny. You know, she never plays even remotely the same person twice. And it shows in all of her performances. Now, I will say that the tone is a little bit uneven throughout. Joe, you were sort of hinting with that. As it goes along, it gets a little more
out there,
crazy, Burton-esque, one might say.
Yeah, actually.
Especially in the courtroom scene, you know, in the climax.
That part I was like, nah.
Like, kind of like a comedy.
Not even remotely.
You know.
I wasn't sure about that, yeah.
But I'm exactly with you. I give it a B+. I thought this was a really good movie.
I was into it.
And a less of a Burton movie, really, than we've seen. Like, he loves to go super crazy, and other than maybe the last 2 or 3 scenes, it's not very Burton-heavy influence.
He creeps it in here and there.
There's a couple touches,
but here and there. Compare this to Edward Scissorhands or Beetlejuice, both of which I love, by the way.
Day.
But they're night and day in tone.
Yeah, no,
for sure.
You know? I completely agree with you that it's his least Tim Burton movie.
Right.
But it's like he's trying to get away from that, but he can't.
I thought he could.
I thought he could if he hadn't, like, you know, done a couple weird hallucinations and then the whole, like, last act. I think it would have been pretty non-Burton-y.
Well, the thing is, I don't think he really needed to do the Burton thing, because the concept of the big-eyed paintings is such a Burton concept already.
Yeah.
That it's already... Like, that's Burton's stamp without even him having to do anything. Mm-hmm. You know?
But, I mean, he obviously couldn't make it too Burton-y because he's doing a more realistic story. So, for everybody to be like undead goth people...
Yeah, I mean, these are real people. You can't really compare this to Frankenweenie or Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's cool. Is that he's getting away from that. He can actually do something outside of that, which I like.
I mean, Ed Wood, I think, maybe is the last one I can think of that was based on real people that he did. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, Planet of the Apes, not so much.
Certainly not Big Fish, but...
Yeah, Big Fish, no, which I love again.
Still always that
great movie.
Element of fantasy.
Right. I'm blown away.
Come on, just go at
D+ is pretty harsh. I mean,
this was not well written. I'll just come out and say it. I thought it was an atrociously written script.
I mean, like I said, I don't think that they expanded on some of the depths of the characters. I admit there's some detail missing there. But I think they were just kind of letting the actors really dance on it and kind of do it more naturalistically that way.
Which is fine, but when it becomes like the Adams and Walt's Power Hour and everyone else basically gets swept off to the side, I'm kind of frustrated because it's like we have Jason Schwartzman who he keeps like gesturing at like, oh, he might be a big deal later. No, not really. He's just angry art vendor who...
Yeah, but his character's window dressing. His character is not really a part of their story.
It's more like a cameo, I thought. Yeah. You know?
They show him in the trailer, so that's where I was trying to go with that.
They show Johnny Depp in the End of the Woods trailer, too. I mean, you know. I mean, trailers lie. We've learned this.
What about...
I will never deny that, but...
Terrence Stamp. I mean, he did pretty well with his couple scenes. I thought he stood out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was pretty good.
He was pretty good. He's always good. So, I mean, you can't say that people didn't stand out.
And even Kristen Ritter, I thought, you know, as Amy Adams' best friend, I thought, you know, I'm not sure if she really... looks like she belongs in this, you know, with these people in this era. But then the more I thought about it, Kristen Ritter is an actress who has these enormous eyes. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like a Christina Ricci kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's maybe why they chose her to sort of, you know, emulate that style.
Another source for
in a real person.
They did
let alone the paintings.
And you notice the actress that played her daughter had rather large eyes, which makes sense for the painting as well. So there's still a little bit of that theme going on.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was pretty smooth. I didn't think you were supposed to take it too seriously because it still has...
wanted you to, which was my biggest issue.
I think it had a little bit of an underlying element of fantasy there. There were some hints of Burtonisms, but I don't know. I think that on the whole, it worked for me. I enjoyed the performances. I thought they were great.
No, I mean, Adams and Waltz are hands down the best thing this movie has going for it. Do I think it will get either of them an Oscar? Absolutely not. But...
Nah, I don't know.
I'll be honest, the movie would have been unbearable without them.
You know...
Well, I mean, they're both great performers, so you could say the same really about any movie that either one of them are in. So that's not really that bold of a statement.
I can't really argue that.
Well, all right,
that's
Justin,
fair.
If you can point out any specifics, what is it exactly about the story that really bothered you the most?
You both have seen Ed Wood, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know how in Ed Wood, it was still sort of a drama, but they had this sort of like quirkiness that kept it lively for you? Mm-hmm. Big Eyes is deadly serious the entire time.
I don't know about deadly serious. I think it was relatively lighthearted for the most part. There's some more serious scenes, but I don't think it's like this gripping drama.
I think it's dramatic enough that the courtroom craziness at the end seems out of place.
Yes.
I'll give you that.
But I don't think that it is a heavy movie. Unbroken's a heavy movie. It's a drama. Yes, it is. But
A light drama?
I think Edward Scissorhands is a drama with flourishes of comedy peppered in, not, thrown into one scene at the end like this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's pretty lighthearted material for a drama.
Not
Yeah.
entirely sure. Well, I mean, lighthearted for a drama, I guess, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what he's trying to do. I honestly do respect the fact that he's trying to be versatile, but he just doesn't know where to go with this. It's rushed. The characterization is appalling at times. The ending is ridiculously abrupt, and
Well, these are based on real people, too. So the characterizations, I don't know if we can fault Burton for that. I mean, these are real people.
he's in charge of telling the story. We can at least partially fault him for that.
I guess, but I mean, if this is how they were.
It's true. If it's trying to be accurate, like, we don't know how specific it is.
Right.
Yeah, but you're at least in charge of how you end your movie. It basically pulls a wild. Let's give a really unnecessary epilogue for no reason.
No, I thought it was much different from the ending of Wild. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought it was well placed.
It might have been a little abrupt, perhaps, but I thought that, like, it reached the conclusion it had to, and we can move on, get some interesting facts, and we're good to go. It's not, like, supposed to be the most empowering thing ever, I'll give you that, but I think it was pretty good entertainment.
All right, well, certainly some differing opinions on Big Eyes. Let's see how our next movie grabs us, and that is our home media moment, Automata. And Joe's got that.
Automata is a science fiction action film directed by Gabe Ibanez. In 2044, solar flares have made the Earth's surface radioactive and pretty much decimated Earth's human population, reducing it to 99.7% less. So that's very, very few people on this planet. Think about it. The survivors have built robots called pilgrims to help them rebuild their harsh environments into something more habitable. These robots have two inalterable protocols. They may not harm any form of life, and they may not modify themselves or other robots. Originally seen as mankind's salvation, they were glorified. However, when they failed to stop the advance of desertification, they were relegated to domestic servitude. Jacques Vacant, played by Antonio Banderas, is an insurance claim worker of the robotics company who discovers that the robots may be breaking their second protocol and perhaps doing even more. This film uses a classic sci-fi formula. In fact, it is obviously heavily inspired by both iRobot and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. More so, the movie utilizes the style of Blade Runner and other similar films. While that means that the story ideas do focus on big ones, it is perhaps too reliant on these sources. Basically, there is really nothing new in this film that we haven't seen before. Structurally it works, and Banderas and the supporting cast, love the likes of Robert Forster and Melanie Griffith, have performances which don't really elevate the material a great deal. Since we've seen it all before, there just isn't that much tension, at least not for me. Everything about this film was just okay, and I give it a C.
Yeah, I mean, there's some okay performances here, but it is easy to see why Melanie Griffith isn't a leading lady anymore. First of all, the plastic surgery has just killed her face. She looks terrible, but she's okay, and that's the best I can say about her performance. Antonio Banderas, he's a little better than her, but still, I've seen him
do better
in tons of things that are better than this. But you're right, Joe. There's some interesting ideas here, but quite literally nothing is original. Even to a modest sci-fi fan like myself, I've seen everything here before. It's not derivative enough to be boring, but it's also not new enough to be at all interesting. It just is. So for me, it's a C-. Justin?
There's a difference between being a love letter, such as in the case of The Artist, and ripping off narrative elements from sci-fi films that did them so much better. Oblivion. Automata's trying to say something about humanity, and possibly even civil rights for that matter, but ends up going all over the place so much that the end result is merely bleak and just not that interesting. And when the audience cares more about the machines than Banderas being whiny, I feel like something's wrong with this picture. It gets a little bit better near the end. Some of the characterizations get a bit more interesting, but this was just tacked on eyesore. I give it a D.
I don't know if I agree with the statement, though, that if you care more about the robot than you do about the person, there's a problem. Because we've seen movies in the past, I think, where you do have an emotional connection to a non-alive creature.
Many movies, actually.
And Joe, one of your top 5 most anticipated for the year is Chappie.
Yeah.
Which this is certainly like,
Okay.
my God, if there's something reminiscent of Chappie, it's this.
Yep.
But, I mean, judging from the previews, I think we're supposed to really care about Chappie
Since he's,
more than anybody.
basically
in
the
that
main
movie.
character.
However, the robots are not supposed to be the main character, and if you look at any of the promotions for this movie, it's clearly Antonio Banderas we're supposed to root for. I thought he was whiny. I thought at times he was selfish. And for the most part, I don't think he really grew all that much.
Well, to be fair, I think that's the angle they were going for. I don't think he was supposed to be the most likable guy. He was human, so to speak.
He was human, and there are ways you can implement that in a way that's thought-provoking and really interesting.
Oh, I agree
Blade
with
Runner
you.
does a great job with that.
He wasn't the best character to follow. I mean, he really complained a lot.
I didn't care about him.
He punched one of the robots in the face at one point. I'm like, well, okay, you can die now. I mean,
I was going to say,
It takes him down a peg.
yeah, it was a little. I didn't really get his tantrums, but then again, he was dying of radiation. So
I think there's like one point, probably a third of the way into the movie, where he's whining, where he's like mentioning that he needs to get back to his kids and they're worried about him being in danger. I just kept thinking to myself, I don't care.
I don't think his kids cared either. They were like, bye.
Yeah.
You punch robots, dude. You're done.
pretty much. I mean, it's okay. Like, I thought there were definitely some cool things about the movie. I don't know about a D, but yeah, it was all right. It was pretty much just in a state of being made up of all these other things, obviously in other much better movies. But like I said, it held it up because it was borrowing from pretty much everything.
Right. It did pick good source material, at least.
To rip off, but it's basically a rip off of everything.
Right.
But
Yeah. I can't recommend it for
Though,
sure, but
I
it was all right.
as not, even though it wasn't very good, though, I do have to say it's still a better adaptation of the iRobot source material than the Will Smith movie, which is sad
I've heard that.
because I will admit
I like the movie, but
No,
I don't
no,
have any
look,
connection to the book.
I'll say no. I will say the Will Smith movie is entertaining, but this movie is closer to that, I think, in terms
Okay.
of message
Well,
in pretty much every
that
way.
could be.
So that is a positive at
Well,
least.
Joe, to offer a brief counterpoint,
Oh, you're not going to defend that, are you? That's interesting.
if they were to do a solid word-for-word adaptation of iRobot, it would not be an action thriller. It would be a drama.
Which is fine. It wouldn't have to be. I think that's the big problem, is that with the works of Asimov, there's a lot of talking, a lot of big ideas. Maybe people think that's difficult to adapt. It's like another piece of science fiction called Dune, that's had a bit of an issue. But, there are ways to make it work, I think. And this one wasn't very good, but at least it didn't completely sell out and turn into something that's basically not like the book at all, with the exception of a few basic ideas. So, yes, I like the Will Smith movie too, but it's a terrible adaptation.
Yeah. On that, we can agree.
All right, well, no top 5 this week, like we said at the top of the show. A lot of ground to cover, so we're just going to get right into our triple feature of older films. We kick off, as we did last year in January, Guilty Pleasure Month. So we have an old classic coming up from Justin, and we have an Oscar A to Z called Apollo 13 that maybe you've heard of. But first up is a new classic that maybe you have not heard of, and that is called No. This is a Chilean Oscar-nominated drama film based on that country's 1988 historical election, when marketing and advertising helped the country decide whether dictator Augusto Pinochet should stay in power for 8 more years. Gael Garcia Bernal stars as a successful ad man who is tapped to helm advertising and TV campaigns for the no side of the election. His unorthodox methods make the campaign stand out from anything seen before in politics. The reason we ran this one this week is because, of course, last week we did our best and worst of 2014. This appeared in all 3 of our top 20s for the previous year, 2013, but as this show was only about 4 months old at that point, we never got a chance to talk about this movie. It is a top-notch drama. It tackles interesting themes and covers a topic that I don't think anybody under the age of 40 even realizes went on. And to shoot the entire film on video equipment from the era makes it stand out even more. It was a very strong decision that worked by director Pablo Larraín. And Garcia Bernal really shines in the role, and he embodies this character and his struggle to have his side's message heard. I give it an A. Justin?
Well, Dan, I feel like with any new classic, we always find ourselves asking the big question. Does it hold up on repeat viewing? With this one, absolutely. I still think it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get moving, but once No dives into its media war that it focuses on, it truly takes off and doesn't stop. Bernal absolutely absorbs the role. It's a really fascinating story. It really gets intense at times. But my favorite aspect of this movie is that it looks not only at what's being presented to audiences and how to get a reaction out of them, but how it's being presented. And for that reason, I think it's easily one of the more thought-provoking movies of 2013, and I give it an A.
Joe, how about for you?
You guys recommended this movie to me because I hadn't seen it, and it really did have a big impact for me. This movie was a great surprise to me, and I think that it still really works. I love the documentary-like style. I think there's great performances and a riveting story. It's a truly wonderful movie, and I give it an A.
Yeah. What more could be said than that? Straight to the point.
Literally like 4 sentences right there. I mean, I was like, look, Noah's great.
Yeah.
And I was like, I still remembered it very well, even though we only saw it like a year ago. And seeing it again, it's virtually flawless.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I do agree, Justin. It might take a little bit of time to get going, but at the same time, you're sort of getting to know Bernal's character.
Situation.
And where he stands.
And where he stands. And this may be an odd comparison, but this whole movie sort of reminds me of Zero Dark 30. It's a movie in which the end result is sort of secondary to the process of getting there, which may sound boring on paper, but is inherently interesting in the right hands. You know, I mean, if somebody told you, oh, there's a movie about an advertising campaign about politics, I don't know, I would think, oh, that sounds horrible. Why would I want to see that?
Yeah.
Well,
and the way it's executed here, and just the groundbreaking nature of their involvement with, trying to change the face of advertising, really, is just so powerful.
Well, I think it just goes to show that potentially any idea could be interesting if it's done correctly.
That's probably true, yeah.
A good example is Moneyball. You guys told me what that movie was like. I thought it sounded like the most boring thing ever. A movie about, like, baseball statistics.
Man creating statistics
for
baseball.
It was like, wow, this is going to be a long 2.5 hours. But pretty good movie, so it just goes to show the potential there. I do think, though, that it would have been a lot quicker for them for their process if they had Don Draper on board.
Yeah, he was definitely the ad man. Although in 1988, he may have been retired by then.
We don't know yet.
We don't know
so
quite yet.
We'll find out.
Yeah. But no is absolutely, recommended very highly by all three of us. It's one that doesn't really get talked about. It did get nominated at the Oscars that year for foreign film. It did not win. It really is very interesting, to see the process of everything. All right, well, up next is our old classic, and we kick off Guilty Pleasure Month with Rocket Man. Justin?
Ever since he was a child, clumsy spacecraft designer Fred Randall, played by Harlan Williams, longed to go off into space. However, when his actions incapacitate a NASA crewman, Fred gets the opportunity to take his place and join their potentially perilous mission to Mars as many hijinks ensue. Listeners, I'm just going to call this right now. This is the worst old classic I have ever run. But you don't have to blame me for this one. You can blame Joe. This man claimed near the end of Guilty Pleasure Month last season that we did not go guilty enough. I was horribly offended by this statement. So as per my need to bring up something thought-provoking and in fact a guilty pleasure, I lowered the bar. And we got Rocket Man. Now I saw this about a year after it came out. I was really, really sick that day. But I saw it and it cheered me up. And my whole family's immediately quoted it ever since. At the time I thought it was hilarious. I still think Harlan Williams is kind of funny at times. I admit the movie does get dumber and dumber as it gets older, but it's definitely a movie that's got a place for me. I think there are a couple memorable, funny moments, but I gotta admit, it's dumb as dumb can be. I give it a C+.
Joe, how about for you?
I do say you definitely knocked it down a couple pegs more, for sure. This movie is really dumb. However, it knows that it's dumb, for the most part anyway. Our main character is reduced to a man-child with some seriously low-brow stuff, potty humor obviously included. Not to mention one surprisingly racist scene that I'm shocked got past editing, or even shooting, or writing. I mean, this is Disney. What saddens me is that I feel like there were some possible moments of excellent parody. This idea was used by The Simpsons a few years before this film, and it's one of the best episodes in the series for a lot of people. I guess I can forgive it for being aimed at small children, but I do believe children deserve better stories. Then again, I did laugh a few times. The worst part was that they had this kind of serious subplot, and I can only ask why, because I didn't care about it at all. But for the fact that I think it kind of knew it was extremely dumb, and I did laugh a bit, I would leave it with the D+. I did kind of find some things amusing, but it is really bad.
I have an actual challenge for you. Last week on the show, we did a challenge. You know, we all agreed to watch a movie that another member of the show thought we graded too harshly. Next time there is a movie like Alexander or Annie or any of these movies that you give D's to that are aimed at children, Justin, I would love for you to actually view this as a child would. Because if you saw Rocketman for the first time the other day like I did, you would want to blow your brains out. It is horrible. There's nothing good about it. And I love kids' movies. Love them. Harlan Williams is easily one of the most annoying people in entertainment. I have seen him before doing stand-up and on talk shows. He's always terrible. And
I don't agree, but go on.
That's fine. You would if you didn't see this movie when you were a kid.
I never heard of this guy before. So.
I have.
Okay.
Well, you don't know that because you did see him as a kid. So
No, I saw him later on.
Oh, all right. Yeah. But you already had the connection. So I'm just saying.
He's Rocketman.
If you hadn't, I compare him to an Ernest. You know, Ernest Goes to Jail. Ernest Goes to
I kind of like Ernest, though.
Even when those Ernest movies were out when I was a kid, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I didn't even like them then.
Really?
And that's, I guess, who they were aimed at. The effects are a joke, even for something on that you would see on like a directed DVD. It's just cheap looking. It's not funny at all. I didn't even get a smile out of it, let alone a chuckle or a laugh. I mean, this is an F, clearly. It's horrible. And you lowered the bar, that's for sure. But I just don't agree. I just don't think that if you saw this movie recently in your adult life in your 20s, I just can't imagine you liking it. I think it's because you have that connection to it.
Well, real funny in effect.
Well, that's what makes it a guilty pleasure. I mean, you know.
True. But I would just love for the next dumb kids movie we get that I think is cute or funny, I would love for you to view it as if you were the, 8-year-old or whatever when this came out.
7, I believe.
Something to that effect, sure.
Close enough, yeah.
You know, because this is just, this is Drek. There's nothing else I can call it
now,
than that.
Before we actually leave this, though,
tell me.
I did want to point something out to you, Dan.
Sure.
Because William Sadler is his name, the gentleman that plays the main astronaut. I couldn't recall some of his roles. But he had really few of the really good lines in the movie. Basically because he's yelling at the main character and saying, I want to kill you.
Calling him an idiot.
Which is pretty much what saved the movie for me because I love that guy. Probably why I got a D+. Now, William Sadler has been in these things, okay? He was one of the main villains in a later story arc on Deep Space Nine. He was also in supporting roles in such films as Shawshank Redemption and Die Hard 2. He also played the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and
That's a good movie.
Recently was the president in Iron Man 3. So he's been in some significant supporting roles. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's fine, but that also doesn't faze me. I mean, Christopher Lloyd was in the Oogie Loves movie.
I know.
So I mean, cool that he needed the money.
No,
just because you earned a great actor doesn't mean you don't make crap.
Yeah, I mean, but Bo Bridges was in this too. He's all right.
No, he
was in The Descendants, for God's sake.
I'm just saying that that guy's been in things. Okay. I know you're like he's a nobody.
That could have affected your grade a little bit.
I liked seeing him.
You like him?
I liked him, and I liked the fact that he was mad, and I enjoyed that. I thought he was funny. I thought his reactions to the stupidity were funny. For me.
Okay.
But maybe that's because I like that guy.
Could be.
I don't know. But I thought he was pretty funny.
All right. Well, I thought nothing was funny about this movie.
It's the same year.
Same man.
Same man. Same man. I just know that it's just like, Disney produces some really great things and then they just make that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Disney also produced sequels to literally every one of their movies. The directed DVD, Cinderella 3, A Stitch in Time. Like, come on.
No.
Obviously Disney is not, infallible.
No. But to be fair, they do make pretty good business decisions most of the time. recently.
Lately, yes.
Lately, yeah.
In the 90s, I don't know. Yeah.
We got Meet the Deedles. Just let that sit in for a second.
Meet the
I thought Meet
Deedles.
the Doodles was alright. I would probably give that about a C+.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, bravo on picking a horrible movie.
But
Mission accomplished.
maybe Dan will get to beat you.
Oh, I don't think he'll like my movie at all. But we'll see. That's next week is my choice, and then the week after will be Joe's.
I'm going to win.
I will open it up as well to listener's choice, because we will have our fourth week of the month for you guys, the listeners. So bring them out to us. Let us know your guilty pleasure movie on our Facebook group, Film Fanatics with an exclamation point, or you can just comment right here on the YouTube video. All right, well, we close the show with our Oscar A to Z. This is another in-space story. This one a little bit more highly regarded. It's Apollo 13, and this is a 1995 film nominated for 9 Oscars. It won only 2, editing and sound, but was also nominated for, among others, supporting actor for Ed Harris, supporting actress for Kathleen Quinlan, adapted screenplay, and Best Picture. Joe's going to tell us about Apollo 13.
Because I'm the space guy.
Yeah, man.
No. Well, Apollo 13 is a 1995 American historical docudrama, they call it, and it's a film directed by Ron Howard, who we generally like. The film stars Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, the great Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, another favorite, Gary Sinise, and Ed Harris. So pretty much just about the best cast ever for a movie. Really. The screenplay dramatizes the aborted 1970 Apollo 13 lunar mission and is in itself an adaptation of the book Lost Moon, Perilous Voyage of the Apollo 13 by astronaut Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Kluger. The film depicts astronauts Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes aboard Apollo 13 for America's third moon landing mission. En route, an onboard explosion deprives their spacecraft of most of its oxygen supply and electric power, forcing NASA's flight controllers to abort the moon landing and turning the mission into a struggle to get the 3 men home safely. I haven't seen this one in a long time. I think I might have been about 10 or so. This was really interesting to revisit such a beloved film. Now the question is, does it hold up to the reputation? Well, I would say mostly. The movie was right to win some of those technical awards. The NASA experience at the time does seem very genuine. You'll also have a great cast and director based on events which are considered historically accurate for the most part, so there isn't much wrong with the film because you can go off that template. However, I do feel that though we do care about our heroes, I feel we didn't quite know them as well as we could. Plus, the film does run on way too long. Sad to say, the tension is reduced due to some of these pacing issues. Maybe this is also due to the knowledge of the events of what happened, but overall I still think it might have been noticeable. Apollo 13 is a very good film that could have been just a bit better. I'd leave it with an A-.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I haven't seen it in a long time. I saw it in theaters about 20 years ago, and that was the only time I had seen it. Like most Ron Howard picks, it does go on too long. He's one of the directors on my list that really needs to hire an editor. It is still a good movie, but not quite as good as I remember it being. It is held up by these strong performances. You named the A-list cast, and each one of them just knocks it out of the park. And it has an engaging story, but it misses the mark a bit with the human element. Like you were mentioning, we don't get to know these people.
Not really.
And I think that's a shame, and it stretches the audience's patience a little with the storyline in general. And you mentioned, Joe, as we were watching it, you couldn't believe that the wife, Kathleen Quinlan, was nominated.
I was thinking, okay, Sinise or maybe Bacon. I
thought Tom Hanks got nominated. I was way off.
Yeah, Tom Hanks, obviously, I feel like it must be one of those throwaways. Like,
right.
First of all, she barely had
have been a good year for
any scenes,
supporting actresses.
And the scenes she was in were, they were okay.
She didn't do anything. She didn't add anything to the character or to the story.
She had barely any lines.
Right, right. So I was surprised by that. Of all the acting in the movie, she's one of the more blah ones. So it was surprising that she got nominated. Ed Harris, though, great, of course. Mm-hmm. Well-deserved nomination for him. I'm just a little lower than you with a B+, Joe.
Okay.
Justin?
The best component of Apollo 13, I think, is honestly its story, which is crafted beautifully by the ever-talented Ron Howard. I think for audiences it would be easy to look up what happened, how it happened, things like that. However, what's really awesome about Apollo 13 is that it gets the audience right into the action. Watching the drama unfold, the tension unfold in terms of how these 3 astronauts are going to get back home is great. I love the atmosphere. I love the tension inside, the almost claustrophobic feeling at times, and just the overall struggle that these guys are having. I do agree with you. I do think Ron Howard runs a little over long with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the shots are a little too exaggerated. I think he tries to slow them down sometimes for dramatic effect. Steven Spielberg did it well with Saving Private Ryan. This a little less so. But as a whole, Apollo 13 is a film well deserving of its nominations in my book. I give it an A.
So you really like it. And you had seen it before, like the rest of us. Was it about what you remembered? Was it better? Was it worse? For me, it was slightly worse.
For the most part, on par.
Okay. How long ago had you seen it, though? Not when you were a kid.
A while ago.
5 years ago, right?
It might have been 3.
Okay.
I have seen it a couple times.
Yeah. Well, and also I saw it on the big screen, so for me that may have been a little bit more, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
It's a very theatrical movie.
Yeah, I feel like watching it
yeah.
in the theaters would definitely enhance it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And that may have diminished my love a little bit for it. Also, and this is sort of a weird side note, but I have it on VHS. We watched it in the pan and scan VHS as opposed to the widescreen, which may have also had a slight effect from what I remember.
Widescreen might have helped too.
Yeah, it is the kind of movie that lends itself sort of to that big atmosphere,
cinematic quality.
And, the pan and scan VHS, maybe not the best.
It's what it is.
The best route to see. Yeah, it is what it is. So the story for you was the strongest part.
Yeah,
I do think it's got a great story. The acting though, pretty top notch.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Ed Harris, enough said, and I mean,
he's great.
Great Hank's performance. So no argument there.
Yeah,
but no nomination.
You got me. I mean,
I was so surprised by that.
Maybe the Joe versus the Volcano career was still haunting him.
To be fair, though, 95 was a pretty good year for movies. So
It was. Well, and he had just won 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I know.
So maybe they just thought, well, enough with this now. I mean, I think he should be. I'm surprised at how few times he's actually been nominated.
Yeah.
Because he's in all of these great movies.
Well, I guess when everybody sees an actor portray all these characters very well, they don't really expect much more because how far can you really go?
Right. Yeah, there can only be one Meryl Streep, I suppose.
Yes.
She gets nominated every year for everything.
Well, they really like her.
They do. With good reason, but, I mean, Hanks is
getting there.
Right up there, man.
Pretty up there, yeah.
He can pretty much do anything. All right, well, next week we will have another Oscar movie for you and another Guilty Pleasure, and play some more catch-up with the first movies of the year. We're going to review The Woman in Black 2. We've got Taken 3 on tap for next week, Foxcatcher, and some others. So do join us next week. Joe, you've got some great end-of-year videos on the Merlin channel.
Yeah, we just did, of course, that live stream not too long ago, and I released my top 20 favorite anime series of all time.
Oh, cool.
So that was a pretty good video. Got some good responses from that. And I'll probably be doing a weekly segment of live streams where I talk about entertainment news throughout the week.
Oh, awesome.
Going to implement that there.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. And I'm also going to try and just dive into some more views and some more YouTube retrospectives. So there's some good stuff coming the way in the next couple weeks.
And you and I are going to start doing a Sopranos video series.
Yes, I'm
going to start watching The Sopranos for the first time. And, weekly,
and
we're going to do a little wrap up.
Kind of like a little wrap up, sort of mini review of segments, and I'll be posting those to the channel as well. Hopefully, maybe on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
It will be.
And to all of our subscribers, the numbers keep growing, so we cannot appreciate that more. Please spread the word about the show. If you enjoy it, let somebody else know that you think might also enjoy it. And you can join us on the Twitter feed, which is @FilmFanaticsPod, and, of course, the Facebook group, like I mentioned earlier, Film Fanatics with an exclamation point. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next week. Bye!